On social media, we have been bombarded by agent talk, AI talk. Hey, look at this agentic pipeline. Look at this thing here. I'm coding this. I can code so much faster. I don't even code anymore. I don't write my tests. I don't do this. If you're not doing this, you're a fool. However, a lot of those same people have not been shipping. Maybe not shipping much, maybe shipping privately to clients behind closed doors or something like that. However, where are the cool apps? If I go onto the Google Play Store today, if I go into the App Store today, I'm sure there's some vibe coded stuff. I'm sure there's some AI coded stuff on there, but where are the super cool apps? Every day I go to my phone and I'm still just opening Twitter and Instagram and I'm still just opening the normal stuff, right? I'm not doing anything different. Even stuff like Notion. I'll open Notion up and it's like, I got an AI agent and this and that. And I even just kind of pass it along the side. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily, it's a bad app. Maybe it's bad marketing, I don't know. And that's what this episode is going to be about, is it's going to be about how coding was never the bottleneck, because a product such as an app or a website or a web app, whatever, is not just the actual development of that thing. There's a lot of emotion involved. There's project managers, there's marketers, there's algorithms, all kinds of things. Different ones apply to different projects, of course, but that's what this episode is about, is coding was never the bottleneck. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go and check us out on that Patreon, leave us a review or rating on your podcast app, join us in our Discord server, or share this with your friends. And if you want to help out yourself and also us as well, you can net yourself up to 20% off a Scrimba Pro plan, and you can find that link in the show description and in the show notes, with full details in the show notes on HTML, allthethings.com. So, Mike, you actually wrote up this episode, but I've been seeing this on social media quite a bit. I'm starting to see the posts trickle in on my timelines and on my whatever algorithm-fed home feeds, where they start to say things like, all these people are saying, these AI pro coders are saying, not all of them, but many of them are just like, check out this pipeline for the last 2 years. Look how much faster. Well, if you're coding super fast, why don't you have 50 mobile apps? Why don't you have 25 websites launched? Like, where's the goods? You know?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, it's a weird situation that we're in right now. I've talked to a lot of developers out there recently, and most of them are in the same boat where they're like, I can make whatever I want. And sometimes I do, but there's no use for it outside of like my little niche or my little thing that I'm doing, right? Like, a lot of people are using AI to automate their workflows, which is cool and great. And that's a really good use case for it. But what I'm not seeing is, like, again, an explosion of useful applications that are universally loved and universally used for X thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not seeing innovation. I'm not seeing the next big thing being developed. I'm not seeing anything that suggests that these AI agents are able to ideate, are able to create something unique. And what I am seeing is that it's still the same issue as it was pre-AI, where the idea and the marketing and the market fit are really what matters. Like, the coding aspect of it is actually a very small part of the entire thing. And this has been proven time and time again with, like, hey, here's the pipeline of how you launch a product. You launch a website with no features, with just like a sign up list, right? Like, that's the first thing anyone ever they'll tell you to launch, to see if there's any interest for the product before you waste time building it. And then if there's interest, then you spend time building it. And that is a really good strategy. And that still applies today, even with AI coding agents, because a lot of times, and I've had this experience, and like, I mean, we've had this experience and we've known people to have this experience. You'll build that wait list and you'll try to market it and you'll get nothing. And I would say that's most of the time. That's most of the time's experience, right? And then even if you do get traction with the wait list, what will happen then is you'll build something, but will people actually want to pay for it? And that's another big thing, is like, you don't know. You don't know if people will pay for it, even if they do waitlist something. So there's a lot of hoops you have to go through to build a product. And one of those hoops is definitely developing it. But in my opinion, it's not the biggest or even like the most important hoop by a long shot. And that's what really, I think AI emphasized that more than anything, because of the fact that it kind of democratized the development of a product, or it at least made it easier, right? Like I would still say that like a vibe coded app is probably not going to be fully production code and fully ready. It could be enough to PO, like, proof of concept something, which is big enough to validate an idea, but it's not going to be enough to like, onboard your first 10,000, 100,000 users, right? Like you still need an engineer behind it that's more, AI engineering the product versus vibe coding it. So like we're not democratizing development for the general user, the general like, salesperson. That's not really what's happening, but we are making it easier to have one developer that you bring onto a team build a viable production quality product in a reasonable amount of time with a reason like a smaller subset of money because you only have one person rather than an entire team of developers. So in that way, we are democratizing development, and we're not seeing that impact the feature sets of products. We're not seeing that impact the amount of quality products out there. I'm sure it's impacting the amount of submissions. Like I'm sure the app stores and like both Google and Apple app stores are getting a ridiculous amount of an influx of submissions to their stores. But what that's not translating to is usage of those apps, right? Like we're not seeing viral apps being made that are obviously vibe coded or AI engineered. And that's the really interesting thing that I wanted to talk about today, right? Like we'll get into a little bit of like where the bottlenecks really are, and we'll also talk about what actually slows projects down. Like development never was really the thing that slowed a project down. Not like obviously sometimes it was, but there are really a lot of other reasons that a project either fails or slows down. It's rarely ever the code that's being written.
This like immediately my mind goes to, because before this show we were talking about the gold rush, and my immediate thought is, how many or how much logistics, how many logistical challenges does a gold rush have? If someone goes out there and has to do like some complex chemical test on each of the cliffs that potentially have gold in them, that there's a barrier to entry. And then like vibe coding comes in and makes it so that you just point like a laser gun at the, a laser gun scope looking thing at the mountain. It'll tell you, but you still have to climb up that cliff. You still have to get up there. And then even if you confirm that there's gold in that cliff, you have to have the consideration of, well, how much is up there? And if it's logistically viable or possible for there to be a quote unquote gold rush there. Because we all know towns kind of grew around these gold rushes type thing. And it's like, man, if there's no area for the town to be, and it's a 10-day trek from the nearest potential town site to that gold rush area, how good is it really? How gold rushy is it really going to be, right? If you think about it that way, because it's very easy to forget about all the stuff that surrounds your app idea, that surrounds your gold rush idea. Like you have that initial spark of an idea where you're like, oh my God, this is going to make so much money. This is going to be the biggest thing ever. But then you don't think about all the challenges, all the hurdles, all the logistics of getting to that gold rush. And is there even enough gold to justify using the logistics, or is it gold at all? Is it fool's gold? Who knows? There's a lot of stuff that goes around that sort of golden idea that we have in our heads, because it might not be a golden idea just right off the hop.
And it's a good analogy because what's happening right now is very similar to the gold rush in the sense of like the tools that are being developed for mining the gold are making a lot more money than the actual like outcome of the results of using those tools. So for example, a tool like Cursor, right, that was developed to make it easier for you to use AI to create other apps and code is valued very high right now. And it's really not much expense. Like it's a very good company, but the reality is that how many of the people that are using Cursor, especially new projects, have actually gained enough money to justify the cost of what the Cursor subscription is.
Right.
That's where it probably like very much deviates from the, profitability margin. So Cursor's making money. Yes. Well, arguably, I'm not sure if they're actually making money because I know they're using a lot of money to train models.
They're making
and,
revenue.
They're making
gaining
revenue. Yeah, exactly. Cursor's gaining revenue. Same with like, Anthropic and OpenAI and Gemini. Like they're all gaining revenue right now. Now they're burning money like There is no tomorrow. Like they're literally burning money like there is no tomorrow, like a nation's amount of money they're burning. But they are increasing revenue. And in that way, they are showing that like the tools are viable in a quote unquote in a way of like people are using them, but we don't know what the output is. Now, in an established product, a lot of an enterprise is using those tools. There's probably some value there, but is it the same value that you are getting, you're putting into it, you're getting out of it? Because they get pretty expensive in an enterprise setting. Like those credits are not cheap anymore.
No.
Like not at all. Like if you're using Cursor and you're fleeting Cursor to an entire company, like that's a ludicrous amount of money. I can tell you that right now. The Claude Code is also very, very expensive on an enterprise level because they also charge you for tokens. They don't give you like the subscription. It's per usage tokens, and it's extraordinarily expensive. We use Claude Code in our company. I can tell you right now, it's extraordinarily expensive. It's tough to say that we're gaining we're gaining productivity. Yes, at this point, I could say that pretty confidently. We can build some really cool things. We can, use the tools really well. Have we gained the profit from it yet? No, not yet. And I don't know. There's probably corporations that have, but if we're talking about other things like small indie developers, indie hackers, new startups coming out, using these tools, I'm fairly positive that a lot of them are in the red, even though they're using these tools to build their products. And the reason that they're in the red is that the tool that like the building the app isn't the problem. That's not the bottleneck. And so we're going to talk about the bottlenecks right now. And we're going to start with the main one. And the one that I probably struggle with the most is ideas, right? What to build. Like, what should we build? But you have this amazing power. I think about this all the time. Like I have a Cursor subscription. I have Claude Code from work. Like I have all the open code with like free tiers and stuff like that. I can build a lot of things. And I do build a lot of things for work, for personal stuff, but small little utility things, nothing like productionized. And I can't think of like a good idea on what to build that would actually generate income, even though I could build anything at this point. And so that is the cusp of one of the biggest bottlenecks is like you have to have an idea. And then you have to execute that idea in so many different ways, right? So it's difficult, and you have to know who to build for. Because like I could have an idea for, random McGee, like some it might be even a good idea for, let's say, a gaming community that played some game in the 1980s, some text adventure game in the 1980s, and there's like a solid 20 people that played that game or something, and I could build a really cool product that targets them. Is there anything that I could actually gain from that? Probably not. Like, how would I even find them?
Right.
Like that's the thing. Like you could build an idea and it could be a good idea and it would still be useless if you're not building for a particular audience that is actually willing to convert on that idea.
Well, the thing with the audience is like all your ideas are going to seem like they're gold to you.
Correct.
Right? Like you're trying to build it for an audience and you might be like, "Oh my god, someone else in my shoes might really benefit from this idea." But then you don't realize that what led you to your current position is that you have these 3 very specific clients and you're in this very specific income bracket and you have this very specific like income tax law and you're like, "Oh, so it's me and 4 other people on the planet. Hopefully I find them, and that's not enough people to begin with, right? That need to have their documents organized in this specific way." That's lunacy, right? Like in terms of trying to make it product viability, that's lunacy unless the idea is worth 100,000. And we got 4 other people, we got $400,000. I mean, I guess, but still.
And that's the thing. Like it's difficult to find those ideas unless you're very much like casting a very wide net. And I'll explain a little bit about the problem with ideas and how, for me, it's a very big problem because currently I'm very focused on development and AI and maybe content creation a little bit, like because of the podcast and stuff like that. Those are my work and my hobbies. I don't have much outside of that. It sounds a little bit sad, but the reality is like I have a daughter, so I have a bunch of time that I spend at home with her and with my wife, and like that's where a chunk of my time goes. The other time that I have is my work, which is development, engineering, management, whatever. Like I have like a bunch of different responsibilities. And then I have a slither of time for anything else. And I usually spend that on extra work because I'm trying to make content for the podcast. I'm trying to figure out what to, a cool new tool. Like I'm trying to stay up to date so that I can talk about stuff on the podcast. And so that leads me to not have any like width, any like scope of what's out there that could have problems that ideas could fix. Because the reality right now is if I'm building a tool for developers, they're probably not going to use it because why would they? That's like if I got a tool, like some random one-off tool, I usually would not pay for it, or they might use it, but they won't pay for it. That's what I should say, because they could just be like, oh, that's a cool tool. Why don't I just vibe code it myself? And there's some exceptions to that. Obviously, like if you build a really, really awesome workflow that is hard to replicate and would be just a pain in the ass to maintain, absolutely, there's very much some things there, but it has to be fairly complex. It has to be a pain in the ass to replicate, right? Whereas if I were linked with like the pickleball community, and I knew that there was a problem with pickleball of some sort, scheduling pickleball courts, obviously that problem's solved, but I'm just giving you an example. That would take me, a week to build end to end, and I could be solving a real problem for a community of people that would actually be willing to pay for it because they're not as hooked into the web development side of things, the development like AI and all that, and so like they'd be actually worthwhile to build. So that's the problem with ideas, is that like you not only do you need an idea, you need to find the community that the idea would fit for, or vice versa. You need to find the community first and then find the idea for that community based on all the interactions that you have and all the investment of time that you've made to build up rapport for that community and to understand the weaknesses that are surrounding it. So it's a very difficult problem, that part in itself.
I mean, it's a good example because I mean, our most successful apps and ideas and things like that were from our head. So obviously we had a good idea, but we were in a community of sorts. So I made a Google a Chrome app years ago that allowed you, before there was a Microsoft account switcher, like an official one. I made one that allowed you to access multiple accounts for Outlook.com, and that's the consumer side, not the enterprise Microsoft accounts. And we got thousands and thousands of downloads. I think it hit maybe 15,000 unique users, and we barely advertised it. We got advertised in a local blog, and we put it on our website, which never has hit 15,000 in a month or anything like that. And that was it. And it was just fully discovered, fully found, everything else. And that was because I was in, not for work, right? The personal side, I was in that community of, I had multiple accounts on Outlook.com, and it was a major pain to like sign out, sign in, sign out, sign in. And so I had like a switcher. I just made a switcher, and it was a couple of clicks and you would be in another account, and it would keep you logged in across these different tabs, and they all had different caches and all the rest of it. And it was all through Google Chrome, through the Chrome app platform, through their Windows offering, and then obviously Chrome apps at the time on Chromebooks. And that's what I made. And we didn't monetize it, and it got thousands of users. Thousands of users. And obviously we didn't do a whole bunch of market research or whatever. We made it for ourselves. And obviously like bigger ideas, like things that would take longer, because that didn't take me too long. Things that would take longer would require, some market research. You have to validate the idea. You have to do whatever. But even that spark, like Mike's talking about, that's getting that spark is a bottleneck in and of itself, because you kind of have to be a part of, I don't know if I'm going to call the Outlook.com people that are just using it for email a community, but kind of, right? Where it's like there's a bunch of people using this email client. It's on the web and it's a pain to switch. Let me fix that, right? And like we're talking about an app idea right now with dividends, where I'm a dividend investor. I'm not none of my stuff is financial advice. Because I'm a dividend investor. That's just what I do with a portion of my money. And I do a bunch of research, and I take a lot of risks and all kinds of stuff with dividends. And I need a good dividend tracker. And I've gone through 4, 5, 6, probably more like 4 or 5 apps. And one of them locked it behind a paywall. Another one locked sync behind a paywall. And so every single time I go to another device, I can't sync. I have to pay. And I understand you're like, well, Matt, you could just pay. I get that. But a lot of these apps have a lot of fluff. And so my idea is there's going to be some dividend investors out there that I just want the basics. Like I just want to know what I call it my dividend salary. I want to know how many dividends what my dividend number is per month, per week, per year. Is there like a growth curve maybe, right? And there's other like key statistics like dividend on or cost basis or whatever. Something on cost. I can't remember it anymore. What the thing with all the stuff's called. But the point of the matter is like that is a quote unquote community that I'm in. And there's also a social media app that I use called Blossom for tracking, and kind of interacting with people that are dividend investors and also value investors and things like that. And their dividend feature is locked behind a paywall. And again, I could pay, but I'm like, man, I could probably make an app for this because clearly it's valuable because they're locking it behind a paywall. I could make an app that does this. People could track their dividends. They have a widget. It'd be, pretty easy to do, pretty easy to use, and it doesn't have any of the extra fluff. There's no social media. There's no nothing. It's just somebody goes in there. They track their dividends. They see how much they make per month. They see their the cost basis and all the rest of it, and that's it. And so that's my thought, because even my brokerage has something similar, and it's one of those classic scenarios where it's one of their many web apps and it's broken. One of the months is always wrong for some reason. And so it throws off all the numbers because they're like, oh, like this is a huge drop. It's like, that's not a drop. It's literally zero. Why does it say zero when it's not going to be zero? Right. And so it's like, it was enough of an idea validation for them to do it, but then it wasn't enough because they're doing so many other things to fix this like small problem. And so there's like, some validation and things like that. But have I done it? No, I haven't done it. And I could probably vibe code it, but I haven't. Right. And this is like another one of those weird bottlenecks where I think it's gold. So that maybe there's a bottleneck there that I'm unaware of, but I think it's gold. I think it's a good idea, but I just haven't done it. I have the tools in front of me. I still haven't done it.
And the other part of that is like, is this going to be a paid thing? Are you actually going to get money from it? Or is it going to be like just a free tool that people can use?
It's a good question. Yeah.
That's another whole consideration. I mean, there's some value in having a free tool for like, maybe marketing purposes for yourself or something, but like realistically, like, can you actually make something that people will pay for? That's a whole other question. That's a very difficult question.
Especially when I'm refusing to pay for it when there's offerings out there. So like now there's like that whole other angle. Now my thought is
anti-validation there.
You could just have like an ad. Like I'm thinking, make a conservative amount of money, have a very conservative ad. I don't want it to be this big pop-up or anything. I'm thinking like, try that. But then then there's the question of, well, okay, and I'm spending a bunch of time and effort and I'm trying to make a conservative amount of money or be conservative with the ad, let's just say, right? And this is just an idea. Nothing's been coded up. And so, okay, so then if I want to be conservative with the ad, obviously ads that are less intrusive make less money. So then I have to have more people. How many people are actually going to download this? And I've looked up, like there is one in particular, there's many dividend trackers, but there's one in particular where I'm like, like that one's kind of interesting. That, it might cover, what I want to do. And so then you have to think about all the bottlenecks in the market as well of that. It's, it's bottlenecked. Like my idea is bottlenecked.
Yeah. The idea is kind of the hard part, but like the other part of this is that like if vibe coding kind of makes it so that you can try out a lot of ideas, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You can just, throw it at the Claude code or cursor and just be like, build this and then see what happens. But then even with that, the next part's like, you still have to product manage it a little bit. You still have to figure out how to, put it into some sort of product management service. Even if it's like a small idea, you would want some sort of, what features you want to build written down somewhere and tracked in some capacity. So that's a whole other thing. Like that's another bottleneck. If it's a larger idea that requires a team, right, which is a lot of ideas, that process becomes a whole bottleneck on its own. Like product management is not an easy job to get right. It's a very difficult balance to get like, hey, we want to make our engineers productive, but we also want to track progress. If we lean one way more than the other, we all of a sudden have like the wild west of engineering where we're building features that we shouldn't be building and we're spending time on stuff that we shouldn't be spending time on. And then if we lean the way of like micromanaging everything, we have situations where the engineers are just fed up and like you're building everything becomes a number and the stuff that you're building just doesn't make sense anymore. And you're putting everything in bureaucracy and you're making it slower. Like you're making the engineering part slower due to the bottleneck of you having to go through a 10-stage approval process to build X feature. So there's a very difficult art to being somewhere in the middle there where you're helping the engineers by giving them a structure, but also staying out of their way to allow them to create and have a little bit of creativity and to build things quickly without with the idea of allowing a little bit of flexibility on like timelines or a little bit of flexibility on the feature that's being built out, whatever. Like you have to take some compromises here and there. And again, that's always been a bottleneck. If you look at any project, like any project that I've ever worked on, the friction points almost always have come from product and project management. It's always like managing stakeholders, talking to the people that are asking for features. Why do you need this feature? Listening to feedback from the community and actually like using it in an impactful way to build a feature, not just like immediately rushing to every suggestion, but like taking the ability to like have a way for users to vote on a suggestion and looking at analytics that you put into your application to see what people are actually using and what people aren't, and focusing on the things that people are using. Like that all sounds simple just by saying it, but when you have like a machine that's working on this thing, it's actually very complicated because each one of those decisions has to be managed, maintained, followed up on, and tracked in some sort of way and executed on, right? Like this is all really like a multi-person team a lot of times. And that in itself, the communication factor is also a struggle. So it's that's not really going away with AI. I want to make that clear. AI has some tools and tooling around keeping project management in line a little bit. Like you can connect your Claude Code to your Linear, for example, or your Jira board and have it actually do updates for you while you're building something, which is really cool and great. And it actually keeps a very clean project management tool set up. But then you also have to have the ability to actually use that tool. So you have to have a manager that's able to like look at it and understand what's going on and parse through the comments from Claude and comments from you and be able to have some outcomes of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't prioritize this, maybe we should prioritize this. So like it still is a bottleneck, and it's still one of the hardest parts in development in the sense of keeping everyone happy, which is pretty much impossible, and delivering on a product that people actually want, which is also very difficult. And that's part of the idea part, but it's also, again, part of the execution and the project management part.
Well, the project management, being a bottleneck is it's almost designed to be a bottleneck because you don't want to have people just running through like this dividend app idea that I was mentioning. You don't want, even if it's just me and you, we don't want me running through just my idea, adding 1,500 features and running around. I mean, we made a clicker game back in the day for Chromebooks. We even had like I forget what it was called, a video game design document.
Mhm.
And we
GDD,
intentionally
I think.
yeah, that's right. And
Mhm.
we intentionally had guardrails in there because obviously as you're at that idea stage and it's more of like a public idea at this point where everyone's talking about it, you can't just have people adding features like crazy. Like the scope of work's going to get all out of whack. Maybe everything works if you engineer it one way, except for this one feature. And now you have to like re-engineer everything and you're hitting all these issues. Project and product management is totally, something that is needed. I think is something important to say. It is absolutely needed. The problem with project and product management is that sometimes it's overbearing. And there's your bottleneck because you actually want things to be bottlenecked to a point. Quality control, for example, is a bottleneck. No matter how you slice it, QA is a bottleneck. I could just it's bottlenecking the fact that I can't just fire out my APK onto the Google Play Store. There's a bottleneck there. And Google has their own bottleneck, right? The APK has to be a certain has to hit certain requirements. When we did the Chrome apps, we had to have a manifest file and they had to be packaged in a certain way. That's bottleneck. Why can't I just fire this thing out like a website? Why can't I just fire this APK out and if there's a problem, fix it? I mean, you don't want to erase everyone's data, right? You don't want to have, especially if you have a bunch of users, you don't want to accidentally erase their data. You don't want to leak their emails. You don't want to have all these issues. And so you intentionally have bottleneck. But I will say, your points are great. And I also have another one though, and it is status quo in terms of the project management. And what I mean by that is especially in large companies, you're going to hire people that are, oh, I've been a project manager for 15, 20, 25 years, whatever. Some of those people, they don't exist for the product. They don't exist for the project. They exist to be in the office. So they're just a project manager and they're going to do a generic project management job. They're going to introduce bureaucracy. And even if, like, let's say that's a 5-step procedure and step 5 makes no sense for this particular project, they're not going to budge. Nope. We do a 5-step procedure in this company. I'm the project manager and we're doing 5 steps. Even though it's just some stupid timesheet check or something that makes no sense because that's handled by an outside agency or it's handled by something else. Nope. We have to do this bureaucratic step. So now you're entering your timesheet into your payroll software, and then you're also entering in your timesheet into the project management stuff, to the project manager. And you're just adding a bureaucratic step for no reason. And those steps, don't have to be monetary. They could be technical issues or technical steps. They can be, HR level steps, which maybe money is part of that, but HR level steps where you write down how many, hours you thought of, you break it down. Like, this is how many hours I spent on the idea. This is how many hours I spent on meetings this week. This is how much time I spent in deep work or whatever. Like, you're just adding a step. And I think it's critical to remember that is some people are not there. Like in a startup culture, you're very much there to really push the idea through. Like for the most part, and this isn't always the case, but for the most part, it's like, we got to get this next update out. We have to get this next app out. We have to get going because we don't have, the cash cow that is like, let's say Windows. If you worked at Microsoft, we don't just have Windows out there and established and making untold, hundreds of thousands a month. And then we can delay $1 billion project by 2 weeks or 2 years because who cares? Because Windows is our cash cow. You don't have that, right? And the unfortunate reality is when you have a project manager that comes in, they may implement those very generic, very much like, I'm a project manager and this is all I do. I don't even care what the project is. I'm here to manage it, and this is my 5-step procedure. That's like an office politic, but like that totally exists. Someone who comes in and they do not care. Nope. Let's get the old Gantt chart out. Let's get the old spreadsheets going. Even if it doesn't apply to this project, even if the team is 3 people, this is my 5-step proven procedure. I've been working in, enter in large company here for 10 years. And I worked at this other large company for 10 years. This person goes to the office to project manage. They don't necessarily project manage to get the project out, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to say that about all project managers. That's totally not what I'm saying. But there's absolutely people that will introduce office politics at this bottleneck, at the project and product management step, that will destroy productivity for teams. Absolutely, 100%.
Yep. And that's not curable by AI.
That's not curable by AI.
Unless the ownership takes a drastic step of like laying off those people. But like, you have to figure that out. It's a very complicated process. But like, yes, 100% office politics, office bureaucracy is definitely a bottleneck. 100%. Like, that happens. I've seen it happen in the smaller companies. Like the biggest startup that I've worked at, because every company that I worked at has been a startup, was like 120 people. And there was, even in that small startup, like that's still pretty small.
That's when it starts, though.
Yeah, that's when, like, there was tons of office politics and bureaucracy that were slowly shut down. And as you grow to thousands, which is most of these corporations, they're in the thousands. Oh boy, does that start to scale like crazy? Like you're lucky to get in a ticket a day just following the procedures. But yeah, and again, regardless of your development skills or regardless of the AI's development skills, this is the stuff that slows you down.
Well, there's times where the bureaucracy is needed. Like I mentioned some of it, like you want QA to get in there and like follow a good procedure, and like you want them to make sure that there's no bugs, and you don't want them to just, give her a once over for 10 seconds and then you fire it out. Especially if it's something critical like a bank app. Be like, yeah, whatever, but the checkings and savings got all cross-wired and then the funds kept transferring back and forth, but who cares? Like, that's not good. Like, that's very, very, very not good. But one thing that I actually wanted to say is IT departments. IT departments actually add this to control things. So like, for example, a classic one is, why don't you just let me, as a non-IT staffer, tap on the shoulder of an IT staffer and have them fix my laptop? It's like, no, we have a ticket software. That's a classic one when IT and when businesses start to scale. Like, no, we have a thing. You have to go in and open a ticket and do this and that, because you might tap on my shoulder today and it's fine and I can fix your mouse. But if you tap my shoulder tomorrow, I might like be in the midst of like a huge migration or a big security update. If you keep interrupting me, not only is my work delayed, I'm actually might start making mistakes because I'm distracted. Like, we have to have like a predictability when it comes to IT, especially at scale. And that's an example of like something where you're adding a bit of what I would say a lot of people would claim is office politics, but it's actually to just maintain a good work ethic and a good flow of work, especially depending on the size of your IT department. Because like you can't, if all the laptops break today, I mean, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? There's only 5 IT people, like only 5 can be worked on at a time. There's nothing else we could do. We have to have a procedure that controls the inflow and outflow of, hardware repair and software installations and other things that IT handles.
I think you're right. Like, obviously, there's a lot of processes that are there on purpose, and some of them will inherently introduce bottlenecks on purpose as well, just to slow stuff down to make sure that stuff goes through the right process. It's just frustrating when they're added before they're needed, which is very often. But yeah, there is a reason that a lot of these processes exist, and they should be followed in certain situations, and they should be treated as real bottlenecks, because they
Yes.
are still bottlenecks. Even though they're needed, they are still slowing down the process intentionally a lot of times. And that needs to be taken into account. And again, there's not much AI can do about that.
No.
So yeah.
Those bottlenecks need to be scrutinized. Like, you need to
Yes.
look at it and have like, maybe even like, Mike, you and I talk about time boxing things a lot. It's like,
Mhm.
maybe time box it. If there's absolutely no data to suggest this is going to help or hurt, but we have an inkling or a hunch, a gut feeling, as detectives and shows say, that adding this new sign up form is going to help. It's like, all right, we'll time box it. We'll throw it out there, wait 2 weeks, 30 days, whatever we decide. We'll get some data. We'll look at it. If it's hurting, get it out of here. If it's helping, maybe further investigation. If it's helping in a certain area, maybe certain members have to do the form and other people don't. We need some data, right? We need to time box it. It can't be that classic bureaucracy of, well, we said we would add this form, whether it helps or hurts. Classic government services where you're
Mhm.
just like filling out the same thing. And then you have to go in and then they're still asking you the same. It's like, why is this form here? Just ask me when I'm there. Classic, right? Like, oh, but the procedure says, right? Like, that is where I think you start getting in trouble, when you're like, the procedure says. If that's your only justification when the procedure hasn't been scrutinized very aggressively, then you're going to really have some non-intentional, like, troublesome bottlenecking in the
Yep.
product and project management side.
Absolutely. So moving on from project and product management, because that's a big bottleneck, but there's another arguably bigger one, in my opinion, for the success of a product, like actually getting it out there and into the zeitgeist, which is marketing, sales, and audience, right? That stuff is the thing that's really preventing your app from succeeding. You not having the marketing skills, the marketing team not having the right path to go to market. How do you get people to use the product? That's really what this is about. You built the product. It's a good product, great. You product managed it all the way to creation. You got an MVP. Who's using it? And so, like, learning how to market a product, getting marketing to roll out campaigns, wasting a bunch of money, like burning it, setting it on fire on purpose in some situations, because you need to get, the word out there without any, potential income coming back in. All of that is a huge bottleneck. Not everyone has, millions of dollars to spend on a billboard in Times Square. And is there success rates on billboards in Times Squares even? I don't know. But like, people, a big enough company will take that bet and sometimes succeed, sometimes won't. But like, smaller companies don't have that kind of leverage. Like, they need to be, thrifty and crafty and like try to different things. But like, that, all that stuff is starting to become a little bit too saturated as well. Like, influencers it's starting to get too much. Like, everywhere that I look is influencer marketing this. And like, maybe it's just me because I'm part, like, I'm in the industry a little bit, so I'm starting to get jaded to it. But I feel like people are going to get more and more jaded to influencers and more jaded. So like that might, settle down a little bit, and you'll have to think of other ways to market. Like, how do you really penetrate to the correct people, to the correct audience without an unlimited budget of money that most people don't have for the product? Because if you can't get to the people that actually might use the product, you're screwed. Even if you've built the best tool ever for that group and they're willing to pay for it, if they don't know where it is or or that it exists, how are you going to make any money? How are you going to justify the costs? How are you going to grow? Like, you won't. You just won't. And this is a huge bottleneck in, skills, money, time, everything. Like, I think a lot of products die at this stage, especially with AI. Like, you can get through the ideation phase, maybe get a good idea. You can get through the product management phase, get the product built. But like, can you market it? Yes, AI can help you. Again, there are tools out there that help you market, but a lot of them are like, post 4 times on X for you and then do like a blog post or something. Like, if you think that's going to move the needle, you're in for a long battle.
That's
Like,
like your
that's the
bare
reality.
minimum. You're just trying to keep status quo.
Correct.
That's like your status quo advice, which is still, will be clear, that's still good advice, but it should be
Yes.
like step one. It shouldn't be the step.
Exactly. Like, you need to find a way to market your stuff. And a lot of times that's got to be pretty novel and different. And like, you have to have some sort of special skill that maybe promotes it. Like, I don't know. Like, this stuff is hard for us too. So like, Matt and I struggle probably a little bit with this step. We're getting better at it. But like, the reality is that even if you have a good marketing strategy, it might not hit. Like, it's kind of random in certain ways, because what you need is, you need people to see it, interact with it, and then potentially share it. Those are your, like,
Right.
those are the 3 pillars almost of what you would need to have a successful marketing campaign, and you need that en masse. So you need something that's really, like, punches people right in the face, and they're able to, like, actually share with it. And it doesn't have to be content, but a lot of times it is content. It doesn't have to be traditional advertising. Sometimes it is. Like, there's so many directions you can go on the marketing side of things, that failure is almost inevitable and success is the thing that, like, is unlikely in this space.
I would like to say, like, if you mess up the marketing, then especially in a larger company, you're like opening the door to like a figurative war, like between the departments, where the developers are going to hate the marketing department is going to hate this and that, and you already kind of have that. If you've ever worked in a large company, you kind of already have those lines drawn where you're like, man, we made a great app, and those idiots in marketing, that classic line, right? You go to lunch, those idiots in marketing couldn't get our app downloads above 1,500 a day. Like, what morons couldn't market such an amazing piece of software? And then the marketers, same thing. Those idiots in dev told us brighter colors, or we told them that brighter colors would help it, and they went all dark theme. Why would they do dark theme? Those idiots in the development agency, in the development side of things, right? Or, man, we can't even get an ad approved quickly because there's like such a bottleneck in project management. And we have to fill out this form every time, and we need to have the developer or the director approval, and the director's always away because they're doing like a marketing thing, or they're on vacation, or they're just super busy and they can't always log into this web app and press a checkbox, right? Um, you're opening the door to like a big argument, right, between the departments, and then you start to have that animosity, and then you start having problems because there's always going to be a little bit of that rivalry, right? Maybe that's a bit of tribalism. I don't know. I'm not a doctor of the mind, but psychologist. But I think that is an issue that you want to try to avoid. And what you really need is like a really talented marketing team. Like, for example, like you said, Mike, putting out the ad on the billboard in Times Square, massively expensive. If you're advertising a dev project, How many devs are in Times Square? But it goes further than that, though, and this is where like you start getting talented marketing teams. Maybe there's not a lot of devs hanging around Times Square, and that's a problem. But maybe it isn't, because maybe in this particular niche, it isn't the devs that make the decision. It's the project managers, or it's the people that like schmooze up to clients and they take them on fancy trips. Are a bunch of our clients in New York? Are the clients that are being flown in, being schmoozed by seeing the sites? Are these project managers then in Times Square, and are they seeing the ads? And then you have to look, oh, is the ad tailored then? So, okay, we buy a billboard in Times Square for a month. Is it tailored toward the project manager? Is it tailored toward the guest that they're schmoozing? Is the guest, or is the ad tailored toward developers? And now you have a problem. Now you have another disconnect where you're in the right place, you got the right ad-ish, but then you messed up the content. And I'll be honest, like you and I, Mike, we're not good at that stuff. I'm sure there's even some stuff I just said where you're like, Matt, that's not how marketing works. We're not amazing marketers. We're small, like we're small time just because there's only two of us. But like talented marketing teams can make a huge difference, but they can also be, back to the episode, a huge bottleneck. They can be a huge problem.
Huge bottleneck, huge time sink, huge money sink. That's the thing. Like a lot of companies, like they'll spend a lot of money on the marketing side of things. And if they don't hit, your company will go down in flames. It's a scary thing when you have like engineers, obviously, if they don't develop code, your company will go down in flames, but marketers as well. Like it's the same impact, if not more. And that's why, again, back to the episode title, like the code is never been and isn't the bottleneck. It's always going to be the decision makers at the top, the marketers, the product managers, the audience, the community managers. Like there's just the social media marketers. Like there's so many moving pieces to a product to make it successful that there's no wonder we're not seeing any new products come out at a ridiculous pace, is because all these tools are focused on coding. The other stuff, they can't really ideate. They can't really make marketing material that is super appealing for people, right? Like they can make generic stuff, great, but so can every marketer in the world, really. They can make, crappy generic stuff, but they're not in that like top 1% of marketers. Those are still very unique skills that require a lot of imagination and trial and error and willingness to fail. And marketing and like most AI tools are very safe. They'll give you like the generic response that, yeah, again, it's the bare minimum. The bare minimum, is fine for some things, but you need that twist on how you can penetrate the market that AI is just not capable of doing. Like I haven't seen a very good like aha moment in an AI where like it's given me something really unique that I've never seen before. That hasn't happened. And that's probably because that it's mostly just like, predictive text that's taught on our own information and even more so, it's like very much centered on our information. So it's not like, it's not edgy in the sense of only learning from the very best or the very worst. It's very much learning from the mediocre more than anything, because that's what we have. Like the most content out there is mediocre. And so the LLMs are themselves, unfortunately, in some ways, mediocre. And therefore, they're not able to establish this really creative sense that could penetrate a random market. Like you can't give a task to an automated AI system and get it usually to generate any like significant income. Now, there have been a bunch of different little like projects and benchmarks that I've seen. There's like some sort of benchmark where it actually like makes it so that it tries to sell people like an e-commerce thing. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a good benchmark there. But I don't know how real that is, because I think it's a simulated environment where it like, has fake money, obviously, and fake users buying stuff. I haven't seen a good example of a product that like an AI agent built and then automatically took the marketing side of things and sold to people. Like I don't know if that exists, maybe to a smaller audience, but I think it still is bottlenecked by the idea, because I doubt that the AI could, do that whole loop. Again, we're in 2026 right now. It's March, and things could change, but right now, I know for sure coding isn't the bottleneck. And the proof of that is there just isn't anything interesting that it's built out there. It's rebuilding really interesting things like a browser. Like AI has rebuilt a browser from scratch, not like a Chromium fork, but like a real browser. That's cool. But it's something that's already been done, right? Like same with like anything that it's doing is stuff that's already been done. So that's the problem is like if you want something to succeed, like a novel product, it still comes down to that creative person, that crazy person that has a random idea. And then the the amalgamation of that person and maybe like they are a marketer or maybe they need a marketing team that also succeeds. And then the product management team also focuses the engineers to build the right thing of that product. Like it still is not easy. It's not trivial to have a product go from ideation to launch and succeed. That has not been solved. The only part that's really been quote unquote solved to a certain degree is like the creation of the product.
Yeah, like we've democratized the skill. Like we've made, developing, I don't know if it's easier, but quote unquote easier is, the term that comes to mind. We made development easier, arguably by having development or having AIs helping with development.
Mhm.
But then it's like, okay, if you have like all these crazy creative people, why isn't there all these absolutely amazing apps like flying off the shelves, and all these amazing things being coded up, all these amazing things being drawn or whatever? I know that's a whole controversial topic in and of itself with AI art and things, but it is a good question, right? And we've always kind of had a bit of a bottleneck when it comes to any product. I mean, you like video games are a classic. If you're a gamer right now, anything that's generic does not do well generally. Some stuff does amazing, like sometimes it'll just be the just the right genre, the right time, the right price. Even if it's kind of generic, it's like, you know what, this feels pretty good. Let's do it. And I get it. But there's sometimes, man, if it's a generic game, the classic climb towers to like unlock the map and stuff, people bring that stuff up. There's a reason why there's a meme, is because that used to be the top, right? That used to be the newest thing and everyone loved it. And then all of a sudden it just started becoming, worse, and or not worse, but it started becoming a tired mechanic. And we can see that with, I mean, blog posts and things like SEO blog posts is classic, right? Someone figures out a way to break through the latest Google algorithm. They write up a big blog post on how to do it. 100,000 people implement it. Google comes in, patches that out, changes what they're looking for with one of the Google patches. All of a sudden, people are running around like crazy. But that blog post generally will still stay up. AI is learning off of that. AI is learning off of that thing. And that article was, let's say, not mediocre. It was groundbreaking at the time. 2 years later, it is now mediocre at best. Another 2 years go by, and maybe it's actually not good. It's actually bad advice. AI is still learning that, though. And of course, it's reasoning and things. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but Mike's right in terms of, we kind of have like there's a mediocrity. I don't even want to call it mediocrity. It's almost like there's an average, like there's a status quo, like human thing, right? It's like the app idea I'm talking about is a dividend app idea, and I'm trying to make it like more accessible than behind some paywalls and things. But I mean, clearly it's been done if there's ones that are paywalled. Like I didn't come up with the very first dividend app idea. Heck, I'm talking about making an app on a platform that hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of apps already exist, right? So we have like these things that become like the status quo slowly. Like how crazy was the mobile app boom when the mobile apps came out, right? There's a reason why there was a .com bubble and it burst. People going nuts about websites, people going nuts about e-commerce. That there's some growth issues there. And like apps didn't necessarily go bust, but apps did evolve, but slowly. And a lot of apps are very like status quo. Like you download them and you kind of understand how to use them, and that's because there is like a status quo. There is like a mediocrity or an expectation of how they work. But then every once in a while, something pretty interesting or pretty groundbreaking comes out, and then it starts becoming different, right? Like things start to change. An example in the video game universe would be like a Kojima game is like no other game. Like what other game developer could convince people to walk slowly across a post-apocalyptic wasteland with a game like Death Stranding, and then I'll watch it and not really understand what the heck is happening, but yet I'm still drawn to it. Like, who, you know what I mean? So like that is like a creative that has like found what they want to do, which is video games, and they're in my opinion killing it, right? But then there's going to be like, if I'm like, man, I love that, I'm inspired, what am I going to do? Probably like not necessarily copy someone else's idea, but like I'm going to have maybe a unique sum of the parts, but the parts are all going to be something we've seen before. And so like, you know, that's just kind of the human experience, which is a little unfortunate. And so like that, and like Mike said, kind of naturally creates a bottleneck in and of itself. Like if you ask AI for an SEO plan, like we have a client constantly does this. They'll be like, oh, I got an AI to scan this page, and it asks for all these changes, and I didn't read the changes it asked for. I want you to go through and like make it better. And so you go through, and I go through it, and every time it'll say, change the title and meta description. And we've done this before, and it's gotten more rankings. And it's like, do it again. It's like, it's been 2 weeks. The page hasn't changed. Like the actual page itself, the function of the page hasn't changed. And I could ask you every 10 minutes, and you'd probably say, change the page. Here's another title. Like there's a million ways to word this thing, because there's several words and several characters involved. And it's sort of like, this is very generic advice. Good advice. You should have a meta title. You should have a meta description. You should have that stuff. OG images, open graph images, and things like that. Totally get it. But like, there's only so much, advice where someone comes in and goes like, yeah. And what really sucks and Mike, you can attest to this, is what we hit as agency owners a lot is a bottleneck with a client. And I don't mean project management. I don't mean product management. I don't mean that. What I mean is somebody will get attached to something that they want us to fix or do for them. Like if someone comes to us and they say, we want our SEO to be amazing, and we want our SEO to be so good that we hit 100,000 clicks a month. And it's sort of like, I mean, if everyone could just do that, everyone would just do that. Like, what do you mean? And so maybe, we go in there, we find some technical SEO that needs correcting. Okay, great. We modify their CMS to, we choose a character count that we're comfortable with for the meta title and the meta description, and an image size that works great for open graph. We do all these things, and we limit those fields, and we put those fields in, and we make them required in the CMS so that somebody can't make a new blog post without implementing these SEO changes. That's great. And their SEO goes up. But let's say they wanted like 100,000 and it gets up to like 50,000. And we'll have clients that for years will just like beat that dead horse, and we'll be like, the SEO has something wrong with it. There must be something wrong with the SEO because we're maxing out at 5,000 or 50,000. And it's like, hey, maybe it's not the SEO. Maybe it's because you're not on YouTube, or maybe it's because you're not, you know what I mean? Like there's like that bottleneck for them where they're like, no, it's SEO. And I've had conversations with them, and I've literally been told, until we fix the SEO, we're not entertaining any other idea. And it's like, I would argue the SEO is fixed. They've brought in other experts. I've recommended other experts. I've brought up quotes from experts that I've seen in podcasts and things. And it's like, no, my SEO must hit 100,000. And that almost goes back to that bureaucracy point. And look at how, like, it doesn't matter how much AI that person uses and sends me the report on. It doesn't matter how much AI they use it or don't, to write their blog posts, to write their meta description and their whatever. This is a bottleneck. Like SEO is not enough for your site, for your niche, for your thing. Maybe there's something that we are missing. Maybe there's something that they're missing. Maybe there's something I'm missing. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but maybe we need to try something else now, because it's been years and we've consistently been at 50. It's not like it's gone down to 10, then back up to 57, and then back to, it's like, it's been 50. Line of best fit is 50. You need that extra 50%. Maybe we got to try some YouTube shorts or something. Maybe we got to try podcasts. Maybe we got to try some, whatever it is. The point is like, you don't want to get bogged down in there. And that's like a classic bottleneck. And it doesn't matter how much AI comes and tries to help. And that's not even talking about development. In a way, like the site's been developed at this point. We're just talking about SEO, and we've been doing so for, sometimes 4 or 5 years with some of these people. And they're just like, no, there's something wrong with the SEO. I know there's something wrong. Oh, how do you know? Do you know anything about SEO? No. Oh, okay. You're like, how do you progress past, a bottleneck like that? And so just to kind of share like a personal touch, on the whole bottleneck idea. But there's bottlenecks everywhere, and they are killers.
Yep, and there's not much you can really do about those bottlenecks. Like nothing's really going to help you with them. With the stubbornness bottlenecks, I should say. Sometimes you have to step away from them and focus on other things. Like if you're in a client situation, you can't convince someone that's unconvincible. I have that problem with not just clients, but with people as well. And that, you got to step away. That's the reality of it. So yeah, these are not solvable. Like some of these are not solvable bottlenecks. That's the thing. And I have other things in the show notes here about what actually slows a project down. We've covered actually most of them in conversation, so I'm not going to get into them. But they will be in the show notes on htmlotherthings.com. I'm hoping that again, this episode gives you an idea that like, yes, writing code, I wouldn't say it's a solved problem by AI. Like it's not. Like there are still a lot of reasons for like especially the edge casey stuff that require developers, especially like even like most of the code that's being written by them usually requires an architectural mindset for you to be able to prompt it correctly to get the right code for the right audio. Anyway, it's not really a solved problem, but it's become a lot better, right? Like it can write code. That doesn't mean that you don't need engineers, and that doesn't mean that the products are all of a sudden going to come out perfect and there's going to be all these really cool products out there that will make millions of dollars and everyone will be happy. Like that's just not the case. Like we're still very, very, very far away from that, if ever getting there, because humans are really going to be the bottleneck always, both from like the people that are buying stuff and the people that are executing. So we'll keep track on it. We'll keep track of it. We'll keep trying all these new products that are coming out. I'm hoping that at some point something breaks through and there's a novel idea that's created end to end by AI. That would be a really cool breakthrough. Haven't seen that yet, but it would be interesting at least. Maybe kind of scary even, but regardless, it's something that may be inevitable, maybe not. But right now we're not there.
Yeah. Who knows what the future brings with AI and stuff like this. And also, just a shout out to the listeners out there, the watchers, if you will, the viewers. Watchers versus viewers. It sounds weird to say watchers, and it's always the word I think of first. Very strange. Anyway, if you're a watcher or a listener out there and you've hit some bottlenecks at work or hit some bottlenecks in your personal projects, let us know in the comments. Spotify, Podbean, all them places, YouTube, of course. And also, let us know if you think that, we were wrong in some case. Hey, this isn't a bottleneck, this is a bottleneck. Or no, code is the biggest bottleneck. Of course it is. Why not? Let us know. I mean, it's an opinion-based thing.
Yep.
Lots of facets we touched on today, and I'd love to know your opinion. Always down to learn more. If you liked episodes like this, though, and you want to support them, you can do so on Patreon. That is patreon.com/HTML. All the things. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons. Tim from The Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com. Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com. Garrett Segal, Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com. Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se. Syntaxify from the HTML, All the Things Discord server, and Stacy Mosteler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And remember that you can get up to 20% off a Scrimba Pro plan if you use our link. That'll be in the show description and in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com with full details on how that link works on htmlallthethings.com. And last but not least, we'd like to give a shout out to Michael LaRocca, a contributing author on htmlallthethings.com. Michael is the author of Self-Taught, the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. Feel free to leave a comment or review on the platform that you are listening to this on. And we are signing off.